Welcome to the Lose Weight, Live Life podcast. If you're someone who would do anything to lose weight, yet finds it impossible to stick to a diet, to eat less, or just what you think you should, this podcast is for you. I am your host, certified life and weight mindset coach Claire MACKENZIE. Listen in to learn how to stop overeating, lose weight for the last time, and create a relationship with food and yourself that you love, all without diet deprivation and self-sabotage. Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome to podcast episode number 97. Today I am sharing with you, as I reflect what I learned from my recent holiday, about my relationship with food, myself and my life. But before I do that, I want to let you know that the third and final Weight Loss Mindset Coaching Experience week is happening in September, so it's coming up soon. Registration will be open from next Friday, that is Friday the 26th of August. So in next week's podcast episode, I will give you the link and then you can enroll and register and sign up if you would like to. Okay, so back to my holiday reflections. First, I want you to know that a fundamental principle of the Lose Weight, Live Life Academy, the Mastermind, which is the small group coaching program, and private coaching with me, is that in order to make this weight loss journey your last one and manage your weight for life, it needs to be a continual iterative process of acknowledging when things that you do work and learning from the things that you do that don't work. It's impossible to lose your weight and manage your weight for life without learning what to do when you overeat, when you emotionally eat, when you make a food choice that you later regret, or when you binge. Managing your weight for life is not about never again eating something or in a way that you regret, never eating in a way that you regret ever again. It's about getting those overeats in balance so that they don't prevent you from being the weight that you want to be. And that includes learning not to judge yourself for that type of eating, but loving yourself in spite of those times when you eat and then regret it, and not letting them mean anything and then not going right back to eating how you want, or going right back to eating how you want. And of course, this is everything that you learn when you join the Lose Weight, Live Life programs, so that you can break free from your diet mentality. Okay, so what I want to do essentially is just reinforce that how important it is to be continually reviewing and evaluating what's going on for you so that you can recognize what's working, notice what's not working without judging yourself, take the time to reflect and learn both from what did and didn't work, and then decide what you would do differently next time. And this is the process that I share with you as I reflect on my holiday. And finally, just to explain that how you eat is not just about your relationship with food. It's also about the relationship you have with yourself, including your thoughts about your body and your life. And so I shared my holiday reflections in the Lose Weight, Live Life Academy earlier. And so I thought I would share that with you on the podcast as well. Okay, listen in as I talk about, how I ate on holiday, how the weight that I gained, how I lost that weight, and everything that I learned. All right. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully this is live streaming in Facebook. I know it is pretty early on this Thursday morning. And so if you are watching live, maybe whilst you have your breakfast, then if you've got any questions or comments, then please do put those in the comments, or ask me a question about anything at all at any time. Or if you are watching on replay, then also obviously to go ahead and also ask me a question, but please tag me, says at my name, and then I will see it and then I can respond to it in the chat. So just want to check that this is showing up, because at the moment it's giving me a blank screen. These are the joys of going live on Facebook, but I'll try and talk as I do that. You may remember that before I went on holiday, I said that I was setting myself the goal of not gaining any weight on holiday. And then when I came back from holiday last weekend, one of you asked me if I had achieved my goal, and I said absolutely not. And I also said that I would share with you my experiences of being on holiday. So I'm going to talk about how I ate on holiday, gaining some pounds, and I gained 5 pounds, and I've also lost those 5 pounds. So I'm going to talk about all of that and share my reflection in terms of what worked, what didn't work, what I learned, and what I would do differently next time. So that's something that I often encourage you to do, whether it is evaluating your day, as you know, or your week or your month, but always to be doing that continual reflection on what's working and what you're learning and what you want to do differently, because that is how we make these lifelong changes in terms of our relationship with food, our lives, and ourselves. So where shall I start? I'm trying to think about this now. I'm going to share lots about my holiday first, I think, and then do the analysis, or I might do the analysis as I go along. I just want you to also to say that even if you love how you ate and how you showed up for yourself on holiday, so when what you might describe as perfectly for you, still do this reflection and analysis, because making a note, making yourself consciously aware of what worked for you is just as important as looking at and analysing what didn't work for you. So I just wanted to say that. So my holiday was a Mediterranean cruise with my family. So my husband, my son James, who's 19, my daughter Scarlett, who's 16. And this was a pretty big holiday for us, partly because we wanted to do something special after COVID, partly because we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary this year, and partly because, my children are growing up and we're not sure how many more family holidays we will have together. So it was a 9-night cruise, and then it was 2 nights in Rome at the end of it. And when I got back, I was going straight into a 3-day business mastermind type event where I was just going to be, it's sort of entirely focused on working with a group of people on my business all day for 3 days. So that's just sort of like a little bit about what was going on there. And of course, being on a cruise, there is always food available, like just ridiculous amounts of food available all of the time. And it is all included in a part of the cruise package. So, unlimited food, lots of delicious food, eat whatever you want, whenever you want, 10 times a day if you wanted to. A couple of days, so some of you will know I've shared that some of our holiday challenges. So a couple of days before we were going on the cruise, my stress levels were high. So we had to get supervised negative COVID tests. I think that was my initial cause of concern. The flights that we were getting were actually included as a part of the cruise. So they were sort of like, they were given to us for free, or we paid £1 for them or something like that. But that actually meant that we would be having to change. So even though we were flying to Barcelona, we were supposed to fly to Frankfurt and then pick up another plane and then fly to Barcelona. And we were due to fly out at 6:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. Even Sunday, I was sort of like stressing, and I'm not a big stressor, but there were so many sort of variables going on here. I was stressing a little bit. So I did that sort of, perimenopausal, menopausal thing of waking up at 2:00 in the morning with my mind racing and never actually getting back to sleep. And that's fine. It happens to me occasionally. It's no big deal. Then the Friday before we're due to go, Friday morning, COVID tests were negative. We've checked into the flight, getting my nails done, all of that sort of pre-holiday excitement, everything feels brilliant. Come Friday afternoon, and I know some of you know this, our flights were cancelled. And I did say I wasn't going to give you the whole details, but obviously I'm still a little bit like traumatized by it. So initially I thought we got new flights booked, but as I was going through the process with Lufthansa, we got disconnected right at the last minute. And by the time I got connected again, I was 45th in the queue. And then when I eventually got through an hour later, there were no more flights left. They couldn't do anything. We then contacted the cruise company. We were on hold for an hour before we got to speak to anybody there. And then we were told they may have flights for us, but they wouldn't be able to confirm them until later that evening. So, of course, in the meantime, I'm looking at alternative flight options. It was going to cost us literally thousands and thousands of pounds to book a last-minute direct flight. Can we drive to Barcelona and make it in time? No, we can't. Can we get trains and get there in time? No, we can't. So all of this was going on. So we eventually, early that evening, got an email to say that, yes, we had got flights. I tried to check in for them, and the check-in process wouldn't work and wouldn't go through. So at that point, I'm even not that sure whether or not these flights are real and whether we've got them, or where maybe we're on standby for a spare space. So because we've been dealing with this all afternoon, of course, not finished the packing. It's now sort of 8:00 at night. We are now flying from Gatwick early hours of the morning and not Heathrow. We work out we probably need to leave about 1:00 in the morning, as we're not sure even if when we get there, we're going to have flights. So end up packing pretty much no sleep, having barely slept the night before. Anyway, so we get to Gatwick, really lucky that we get to check in okay. We're really early. I did then drop my phone and break it. So that was another slight little mishap. But then we're in Gatwick Airport. We are waiting for the food and drinks outlets to open, because by this point we're there so early. And I normally, 6 years ago or whenever, get to an airport, going on holiday, first thing I would do is, have something delicious and tasty to eat that I would probably tell myself I shouldn't be eating when I'm not on holiday. So real diet mentality approach around how I was eating before I lost my weight. And so I ended up not eating anything for most of the day. When I fly, I get quite bloated, probably more information than you want to know. But, food doesn't have a good effect on me and my stomach when I fly. If it's a short flight, I'm better off not eating. If it's a long haul flight, then I'm very careful now about how I eat. So what would be a win for me is getting to the airport, having, and not eating to treat myself, to handle the emotion of the relief. So this is sometimes that I know a lot of you say you eat after the stress, when you sort of have that sort of down moment. So I didn't eat to reward myself, to comfort myself, to handle the feeling of relief, to any of those things which I would normally have done. So this was a big win, and ended up actually not eating much all day, just because when we did the change by this point we were actually changing in Madrid, we didn't have time. So it's just the way it went, and that's absolutely fine. So that was the first thing, really, in terms of I really encourage you to focus on what worked. That's just an example of what worked for me. Noticing that it was really no big deal. I hardly thought about it more than once, about whether I should have something to eat in the morning or not. And I didn't, and I really enjoyed my coffee, and that's absolutely fine. Anyway, so the rest of the day, as some of you know, ended up with our two of our suitcases getting lost, my husband's suitcase and my daughter's. We ended up getting on the boat 10 minutes after the last onboarding time, 20 minutes before the boat left. So all fraught, and ended up sort of very quickly, half an hour on deck, choosing to have a pina colada in the sunshine as the boat leaves. So that was just absolutely brilliant and wonderful. And this is another really good example of that, mix of positive and negative. So I often talk about life being 50% positive and 50% negative. And actually, we wouldn't appreciate the positive points. We wouldn't appreciate what makes us happy if we didn't also experience some sadness. And so this, I think, is just another really good example of, how absolutely euphoric and joyful it felt to be on the boat and having a drink in the sunshine after the process that we had gone to get there. I probably appreciated it an awful lot more. And it's just useful to observe and notice that and be aware of it. So really enjoyed my pina colada. And then we go into restaurants for the evening. Now, as you also probably most of you know, I generally don't eat bread, and that is fine for me. It doesn't bother me, but I have really enjoyed and loved my bread in the past. And so, as you can imagine, going to the restaurant on the cruise ship, they put a bread basket on your table in front of you with 3 different flavored butters, and they talk you through, what this specialty bread is and what this specialty butter is and all of this. So as not having eaten all day, I'm probably pretty hungry. And straight away I go for the bread, and I really enjoy it, and that is absolutely fine. And I also, had some dessert with that meal, and probably had another glass of wine and all of that. I'm not going to go through exactly what I had at every single meal, don't worry. But so what I want to sort of jump into now is sort of evaluating generally what worked for me and what didn't work for me in terms of how I ate on holiday. So let's talk about something else that worked first. It's always good to focus on when you're doing these evaluations is really look at what worked for you. When you start doing this, you might find it really difficult to find the parts of your evaluation of what worked because your brain is so used to focusing on the negative. But really, the more you do this, the more you practice looking at what worked, the easier it will get. So what worked for me on holiday was I didn't have breakfast. So some of you may know, again, I don't eat breakfast. I've never been a person who has felt hungry in the morning, even when I was very overweight. I do enjoy breakfast foods, but I find that if I eat breakfast, I tend to be more hungry than if I don't eat breakfast, sort of mid-morning. I find that I have more energy if I don't eat breakfast. It just suits my body to not eat breakfast. I'm not saying this is anything that so because it suits me, it's something you should also do. Of course, the work that we do here in the Academy is very much about you really tuning into how you be wanting to eat and what works for you. But typically, even though generally I don't eat breakfast, when I have gone on holiday previously, I will either start off not having breakfast and then have some towards the end of the holiday, a little bit of diet mentality creeping in, starting to worry that I'm missing out. Or I would decide that actually I'm going to really enjoy the pastries or the croissants or something. Or I would decide that actually I'm going to enjoy the eggs and bacon, whatever it is. But on this particular holiday, I didn't have breakfast once. And that really worked for me. It was really easy. So I joined my family for breakfast every single day. I sat there, I enjoyed my coffee. I didn't even notice that I wasn't really eating with them. We were just chatting, we were talking about our day, we were making plans for the day. It was a really nice family moment. I could have that connection. I think this is a really important point. I could have that connection with my family whilst they were enjoying their food and enjoying their breakfast without having to eat the food, to enjoy being a part of that with them. So that is what I would call, a massive win in terms of it, just not because I didn't eat breakfast, but because it worked really well for me personally. So that is something that worked. Something else that worked, and this is a totally different type of win, is I had decided before going that I was going to, so a couple of things I wanted to enjoy on the cruise. I didn't plan to have the bread. So that was something that was different to what I planned. But I did plan to enjoy drinking the cocktails. Loads of different cocktails available. I'm not a big drinker. I'm not someone that is triggered by alcohol. I'm not somebody that has an over desire for alcohol. For me, it's more about the experience of the drink. So the idea of trying lots of different cocktails to see what I like and what I don't like felt like fun and connection, having a sort of a pre-dinner drink with my husband. So I did drink lots of different cocktails on holiday. I enjoyed those. I enjoyed Aperol Spritz. I enjoyed a small glass of rosé with my lunch on some occasions. And I really enjoyed how I, had those drinks on holiday. And that was a part of how I had something that I had planned to enjoy. So that for me was something, again, that worked. I wasn't drinking to the point where I felt poorly or rough in the morning. I was very, very conscious of having a bucket load of water, both throughout the day and also throughout the evening whilst I was enjoying a couple of drinks as well. Also, whilst we were on holiday, as you probably can imagine, it was incredibly, incredibly hot. And so our days were spent, sort of touring cities. We only did one cruise tour that we paid for with the cruise company. Everything else we did under our own steam, getting buses, getting public transport trains. It made it good fun with children. It was the way that we wanted to do it. But it meant that sometimes we were running around on all of this public transport, not air conditioned, incredible heat, walking lots, all of the rest of it. So it was really, really important that we all drank loads and loads of water on holiday. So that was my sort of little analysis of my drinking, and I enjoyed my drinking. And I would say that's something else that worked. Other things to sort of look back on and reflect on how I ate. So something else that was available on the cruise ship was a really nice coffee shop. I love my coffee, so I enjoyed drinking my coffee on holiday. I stuck to how I normally drink coffee at home, which is that my first coffee of the day is caffeinated, and then my subsequent coffees of the day are decaf. And they had almond milk, which I'm not dairy allergic or intolerant, but I do sometimes enjoy drinking the milk alternatives. So I had almond milk. I think it was possibly a little bit sweetened. So I was aware of that. I still continue to have the almond milk. I enjoyed it. But also with the coffee shop on board the ship, there were continuously all day, and they changed throughout the day, cakes and pastries available all the time. Really delicious, like really well done, sort of little tiny, strawberry tarts, lemon meringue tarts, absolutely probably 20, 30 different choices. I had one pastry throughout the entire cruise. It was a little mini lemon tart. That was something that didn't work for me in terms of I enjoyed the first mouthful, but of course I ended up eating the whole tart. It was only small, but it was still very, very stodgy. And I probably regretted eating it pretty much as soon as I'd finished it. So that was just something that I had sort of probably midway through the cruise, and I was able to see actually that wasn't sort of worth it. I didn't need to eat then. This was between meals. So I knew I wasn't hungry. I just fancied it, but actually it didn't give me the experience of eating it. Wasn't what I wanted it to be. And so that was something that I learned really from that, just useful to really observe, have this sort of very neutral language around observing how you're eating and what's going on for you. I also had planned to enjoy ice cream and some desserts on holiday. So that was something else, thinking about, what foods I want to enjoy differently to maybe how I normally eat at home. I wanted to enjoy ice cream. I wanted to enjoy dessert. So the desserts available were either sort of, order off the menu and serve desserts at dinner time, or from the buffet, mostly, if we were on the ship anyway, at lunchtime. So I started off sort of looking for those desserts that would normally be my favorites, which would be sort of, creamy desserts like chocolate mousse, creme brulee, those sorts of things. I realized probably after 3 or 4 days, again, that those desserts didn't taste quite as good as I expected them to. So after sort of, having them for 3 or 4 days, I then stopped having them and then switched to ice cream. which I then again sort of thought, oh, this is really good for a couple of days. And then I'm like, actually, I'm not enjoying this as much as I wanted to or expected to. And so then I stopped having those sort of lunchtime desserts. And I think this is really, just sort of sharing with you this, even whilst you're enjoying those foods, really get into the habit. And this is everything that you're learning about staying intentional and aware. And it's not about judging yourself. It's just, is this actually giving me what I expected it to, or what I wanted it to? And if it isn't, then it's okay not to have it. And you don't feel deprived. It just feels like you taking care of yourself, you having your own best interests there. I realize I'm gabbling along. I don't know if anybody is tuned in and watching, or if you have. I'm not seeing anybody yet. Hopefully this is showing up. Anyway, so that was something else in terms of my experience with desserts. In terms of the types of food that I ate for my main meals, both at lunchtime and during the evening on the cruise ship, were generally, what I would call choices that I liked. I enjoyed the foods. I ate a lot of fish. I ate a lot of chicken. I didn't massively overeat. It was easy for me to leave food on the plate and not clear my plate. This is all things that I have learned over the past, initially through my weight loss journey, and continue to reinforce over the past 4 or 5 years. So they just come naturally to me now, and they're really, really easy. So that was what I would say, all fine. Then when we had a couple of nights in Rome, the first night I booked us into what was supposedly, one of the best pizza restaurants in Rome. And so I had pizza. Now, I wasn't sure if this would make me feel really uncomfortable or give me really bad indigestion. It only gave me slight indigestion. I'm guessing maybe because I've been having a lot of bread rolls. I should say I continued to eat the bread rolls. I don't think I said that, did I? So I continued to have a bread roll, sometimes even going in and having a second bread roll every night of the cruise. I enjoyed the bread. I enjoyed the butter. I enjoyed the experience of that. In hindsight, as I reflect upon that, what I would like to have done is just taken maybe half a bread roll and enjoyed that with the butter, rather than being in that sort of wanting to sort of moreish state of wanting to have more, which is what I definitely experienced. So I wasn't as mindful, I would say, about eating the bread rolls as I would have liked to have been. And I've got thoughts about the reasons for that. And the reasons for that, I think, were, one, I probably at this point had a pre-dinner drink. So I'd had a drink of alcohol, and I know my food choices are less aware when I've had a drink. And also we were eating quite late. So we were having really busy full-on days, but we weren't having dinner until 8:30 at night. And so I was probably really rather hungry by then. And so in hindsight now, I'm sort of thinking, what would I like to have done? Maybe I would have liked to have taken a bag of nuts with me on the cruise ship, so that I had, when I was having my drink, I had a handful of nuts with them or something, which would probably, serve me better than getting to the restaurant really, really hungry and diving into the bread rolls whilst I waited for my dinner. So that's probably something that I would do differently. Okay, and then so the last couple of days, so as I said, we had pizza at the pizza restaurant. I didn't feel too bad. I felt a little bit aware that I'd eaten something that, doesn't work for me quite so well. And then the next day, I'm like, okay, well, I really need to have some Italian pasta whilst I'm in Rome. So I think I had some tagliatelle. And by now, I'm sort of starting to sort of get used to that. It's a little bit of diet mentality. So as I look back and reflect, this was very much my old way of thinking of, I should have this now because I haven't got the opportunity of again. And of course, my brain is telling me that pasta in Italy or pasta in Rome is entirely different to the pasta we get at home. May or may not be true, but I shouldn't miss out on this opportunity. I may never get to taste, was it carbonara, tagliatelle carbonara? My son had it the day before, and I'd had a taste of his. I think that's what got me onto it, that tastes that good. And so really then starting to fall into a little bit of that, either diet mentality or that conversation about I should have this food now whilst I can. And generally, I don't do that. Generally, I avoid that now. Would very much have been something that I did in the past. So that's just something that I probably want to do a bit more reflection on and think about, would I have that pasta again in the same situation? Yes or no? And I would say, yes, I probably, if I was doing it again, I would have one pizza. I would have one pasta meal. As it was, I actually had some pasta at the airport the last day as we were about to leave. And that is probably something that I would have preferred not to have done, given that we again had 2 flights, and that probably left me feeling a bit bloated and uncomfortable. But that's just sort of really evaluating. Notice as I evaluate how I ate on holiday, there is zero judgment to it. There's curiosity, there's fascination, there's observing myself. I'm doing it in a very caring, non-judgmental way or just a very sort of factual way. Did that work? Did that not work? My language around it is very, very neutral. There's no, I was naughty, I shouldn't have had, I messed up, I was out of control. All of this very dramatic language that we often have as we describe how we're eating is no longer there for me. Okay. And that's something that I want you all to work towards as well. All right. So what I noticed then is when I got back home, having had a few days of eating pasta and pizza, as well as all the other refined carbohydrates I had been eating on holiday, in terms of the alcohol that I've been having, probably the coffees that I was drinking, which I think had some added sugar in them, in the almond milk, and the bread rolls. By the time I get home, I'm looking really puffy in my face. So that's something that I'm noticing, I sort of I'm looking puffy. So whether that's from flying, whether the flying's messed with my digestive system, I'm looking puffy, I feel puffy, and, that's going on for me. So when I weigh myself the next morning, yeah, I am 5 pounds heavier, and that's okay. You know what? I didn't have any sort of, oh my gosh, negative reaction to that. I haven't achieved my goal. It was almost just like, okay, well, that's interesting. And most of what I have noticed is that typically when I've gone on holiday, I haven't actually gained weight. So I've eaten foods that I would normally eat on holiday, but it's not resulted in a weight gain for whatever reason that may be. And I've got thoughts about that because maybe I'm drinking more water, maybe I'm walking more, maybe I'm getting more sleep. There's lots of reasons why I think I can eat different foods on holiday previously and not gain weight, less stressed. All of these impact our weight. Anyway, so I've gained 5 pounds and it's like, okay, that's interesting. Now, I often talk about preparing yourself when you come back for holiday for how you want to be eating, and how it's not how we're eating on holiday that causes us to get into a pattern of gaining weight and not losing it or continuing to gain weight. It's how we eat when we come back. And having experienced this for myself and learned this, I was pretty well set up for, I'm probably going to feel hungrier for the next few days. I'd got a shopping delivery coming at 6 o'clock the next morning after we got back. What I normally do when I come back from holiday is plan to have healthy snacks to help me with my hunger. So rather than pushing through feeling more hungry and being like, no, I'm not going to snack, I'm going to wait, I would be kind to myself. It feels kind to myself to have planned a healthy snack, even though I don't normally snack. But as it was on this occasion, we got back on midnight, something like that. Of course, we flew back into Heathrow. The car was at Gatwick, so we had to go and pick up a car. And then by the time we drive home, all of that. Anyway, so got back around midnight and I'm starting a business conference like 9 o'clock the next morning. And so what that meant was I was actually really busy and focused on something else. So I found that I felt less hungry than I expected to on those days after my holiday. And I'm sure it's because I was so engaged and so focused on being busy, doing something that was interesting. And this is just useful to sort of what you do in your life, and it's not what you do necessarily, how you think about what's going on in your life will either make it more difficult or easier for you to manage your relationship with food. So going straight from holiday to having this sort of event to focus on, then I had less holiday blues. I wasn't noticing my hunger as much as I might otherwise have done. And it just worked really, really well for me. And so on those 3 days, I'm really conscious about drinking loads of water. I had a big chicken Caesar salad for lunch every day for those 3 days. And then in the evening, I had chicken, fish, bucket load of vegetables. So I had 2 tasty, big, decent meals those days, but nothing in between. And that worked really well. And so, as I said, I have lost the 5 pounds I gained. And so I did weigh myself every day because I wanted to track myself to see how easy or difficult it was to lose that weight and to share that with you. So the day after I got home, I had lost 1.8 pounds on the scales. The next day, 1.6 pounds. The next day, 1.2 pounds. The next day, I gained 0.4 of a pound. Didn't eat any differently, just my body doing what it does. And then the day after that, I lost 1.2 pounds. And then the day after that, I lost 0.8 pounds. And that's the 5 pounds. So that got me to my pre-holiday weight, losing 5 pounds in 6 days. Now, would I normally lose that much weight that quickly? No way, absolutely not. Okay. In order to continue now to lose weight, I might, if I was working at losing weight, I might lose like a pound a week if I was lucky. All right. But having eaten on holiday a bucket load of refined carbohydrates, knowing that, we had sort of lived in very hot weather, taking multiple flights, probably messed with my digestion system, and being what I would call, having inflammation from eating those refined carbohydrates, most of that weight was not excess fat. It was just a reflection of how I had been eating and what had been going on with the traveling and the heat. Okay. And I pretty much suspected that. I thought that might be the case because I've seen it before, but I wasn't sure. But losing the weight in that way shows me that absolutely that is what it was. Okay. So it wasn't 5 pounds of fat. It was 5 pounds of excess water, inflammation, digestion not working properly from traveling, all of that sort of thing. So that's really useful to know because, so many of us, and I've done this previously, will get back from holiday, think we've gained a whole load of weight and feel upset with ourselves, disappointed, beat ourselves up about it, tell ourselves that we, lost all control, all of those sorts of things. And it's really important to keep it neutral and be curious and not judge yourself and just use it as a learning opportunity. All right. So that is what I wanted to share with you about how I ate on holiday and in fact my relationship with food. I also want to just say a few things about my relationship with myself and particularly my body. So I've spent nearly all of my life from being a teenager hiding as much of my body as I could on holiday, not wearing shorts, wearing long sleeves, all of the things. And it's probably been a couple of years since I've really thought about whether or not I want to wear shorts or not, I guess is what I'm talking about. So to go on this holiday, I got a couple of pairs of pretty skimpy shorts. My daughter even wore them when her suitcase when she hadn't got her clothes, just to give you an indication. So probably far too, short and skimpy for a woman of my age. But anyway, I was like, okay, I'm not going to hide my legs. Also, even though, of course, when we're really overweight, we think that when we lose weight, we're going to love our body. As I've said before, it does not happen. So I have not done, as much exercise as I would have liked. I don't even know if I did do a bucket load of exercise, if I would tone up, but I've got, excess skin. I've got, there's lots of flab. They, catches on your clothes. So having lost weight doesn't mean that I like how I look. And that's okay because it's a lot less of like, I don't love how I look, but I'm okay with that. And I'm still working at liking how I look all of the time. So I decided that I was going to get my legs out. We were doing, as I said, it was really, really hot. We were doing a lot of walking. So sort of, wearing trainers type, walking around cities and all of that sort of thing. Obviously I had to cover up for the churches in Italy. But what it did was essentially, my legs got the opportunity to get a bit of sunshine, which they've not seen in a while. We were doing lots of walking, so they probably got a little bit more tone. And by the end of the holiday, I consciously worked at not judging my legs, even though they've got cellulite, even though you can see those like varicose veins, lumpy bits, even though there's thread veins on them, all of those things, it's okay. And what I've noticed is I've actually started to appreciate my legs. And this sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I've started to appreciate my legs. So even getting back, just in the house, I sort of carried on wearing shorts and appreciating my legs much more than I ever have before. So I just wanted to share this, that it is, continually looking at and thinking about on purpose a part of your body and how you can learn to appreciate it more. And so I just wanted to share that with you because that's probably something else that I would say is a real win for me. I definitely have a better relationship with my legs now than I had before my holiday. So that feels really, really good. And the next part of my holiday, it could be working on, another part of my body. So that's that really. And so then in terms of like relationship with life, I think really the opportunity there is just, to notice the absolute sort of the yin and the yang of the highlights and the lowlights, and that part of being human, I talk about this, is embracing, the full human experience and all of the emotions. So it is leaning into the disappointment, the frustration, the things not going to plan. So the first day of the holiday was spent trying to find clothes for my daughter and my husband in very hot temperatures in France for hours and hours, and it was not fun. Do you know what I mean? It really, really was not fun, but we embraced it and we did absolutely the best that we could. And we got, we did that and that's fine. But so it's just in terms of how I, showed up for my family, making the most of special moments, building connection letting other family members, when they're having off moments or their own frustrations, be in their own, negative mood, negative energy, and not making it mean that they should be more grateful or they should appreciate every minute and all of these things, because of course they're human, just like me. There were bits of the holiday they really enjoyed and there were bits of the holiday they didn't enjoy so much. And so it's fine for them to experience those different negatives and positive emotions and express them. And so they didn't need to behave a certain way so that I could feel better about things. I think that's something that's really important is, it's up to me to manage my feelings and emotions, and that they can sort of manage their own, and I don't need them to behave a certain way so that I can feel good. And when you can bring that into your relationship, no matter what sort of relationship it is, it's really empowering, knowing that you get to choose how you feel at any given point and you don't require anything of them, and you just get to share the positives and the good moments with them. Okay, so I hope that was useful. If you have got any questions, please do put them into the comments in the Facebook post and tag me. I'm not seeing anybody on here at all. So let me just see if there's any questions on my phone, actually. I'm hoping if I click on this, it's not going to put the sound on. Hi, Trudy. Hi, Emma. Hi, Caroline and Katie. Okay, brilliant that you're there. If you've got any questions afterwards, pop them into the chat and tag me and I'll come back and answer those. I'm also thinking of using what I've shared here. I might share that on the podcast tomorrow as well. So yeah, we have got our lunchtime call. We're talking about procrastination today. So I look forward to seeing you at 12 o'clock later on today. All right, everyone, take care. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and are ready to live a more intentional life, lose weight as a part of that journey, and create a relationship with food and yourself that you love, then I would be honoured to have you join the Lose Weight Live Life Academy membership and coach with me. The programme offers different levels of support to suit you, including self-paced learning, twice weekly calls, private coaching, an amazingly caring community, and lots more. Find out all the details about when and how you can join at www.thebestyou.coach/coaching.